Newbies should just drink rainwater. The beloved taste of concrete for construction workers. At 44, I transitioned from a construction worker to a corporate job at a construction company. At the welcome party, which was supposed to be for me, Michael, the manager, handed me a cup of water. While everyone else had food and drinks, I had none. It wasn't just Michael who was laughing. The other employees were mocking me with their laughter as well. But this smugness of theirs will only last for so long. Tomorrow, the managers will fall into an unexpected hell. My name is John, and I'm 44 years old. Today marks the start of the new fiscal year, and I'm heading to my new job. My new workplace is Smith Construction, known for its extensive public works project and connections with the town. I hurried towards my new workplace. I've changed jobs before and faced many dangers, navigating through various tough situations. But jumping into a new place as a newcomer at this age still required a bit of courage. In the fresh morning sun, I arrived in front of the office and took a deep breath to calm my nerves. Then, a young man in a crisp recruit suit, looking slightly unreliable, approached me. "Good morning. I'm starting work here today. My name is Daniel. I look forward to working with you." "Good morning. I'm John. I'm also starting today. Nice to meet you." Daniel, the young man who introduced himself, extended his hand toward me with a shy smile. I shook his hand and greeted him. It seemed he thought I was a company employee, given my much older age. My dream is to work on a project that will be marked on the map. I want to be involved in construction that serves people, like building big bridges, roads that create living spaces, and dams that ensure safety, so I can look at a map and remember the achievements of my hard work. Up until a week ago, I was sweating it out in manual labor at a road paving construction site on the outskirts of the city. Blending in with the young construction workers, my age of 44 would show as my body ached from a day's physical labor. Often, I had to go to the site without fully recovering from the fatigue, which was physically demanding. But being thanked for contributing to the city and people was rewarding, and seeing the construction progress up close was fulfilling. It was a job that was both enjoyable and educational, and I took pride in my work. My wife, Lisa, always took care of me when I came home exhausted. Even though it might feel awkward being among the new graduates, she would say, "Stand tall," giving me a strong push on the back. Perhaps due to her job as a nurse, she had a way of offering strict yet kind words to those in need. I was grateful for Lisa, who supported someone like me. I've joined the company today. My name is John. I look forward to working with you. I introduced myself during the greeting session for new employees inside the office. After everyone had their turn and it was all over, the president hurried into the office while on the phone. After hanging up, the president opened his planner, glanced at his watch as if about to make another call, pondered for a moment, and then put away his cell phone. His large figure bustling about in a slightly comical manner. When he glanced around the office and our eyes met, he gave a small nod and a smile. Then, he stood in the center of the office and gave his greeting. "Ahem, please relax and listen. I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the new employees who joined us today for choosing our company. No matter the industry or generation, there will be tough times. I want all of you to value human kindness and compassion in your work here. Being thanked for helping others is something anyone would be happy about. Let's build a relationship based on gratitude and trust. We will do our best to make you feel glad you chose our company. So please, I look forward to working with you." I'm not good at formal greetings, so I'll leave it at that. The new employees applauded, and the president lifted a hand before quickly making a call and leaving the office. I was talking to Daniel, who was next to me, about how busy it seemed. "Well, John, you're really tanned." Daniel noticed the difference in color between my face and neck and commented in surprise. "Yeah, up until a week ago, I was working on a road construction site as a construction worker. It was a lively site. right in the residential area south of K intersection. I was just making casual conversation. Then, a man came striding confidently towards us. He seemed to be about the same age as me. He was shorter than me and had a slender build, but his shiny leather shoes and large watch gave off an intimidating vibe. I didn't know his name yet since he hadn't introduced himself, but I wondered if he was an employee or perhaps an executive. "Hey, can you believe we've got a real bottom dweller, a construction worker joining us?" he said without any greeting, scrutinizing me closely. Despite wearing nice things, he was incredibly rude and disappointing. Bottom dweller. Construction work wouldn't get done without workers. It's the workers who sweat it out on site. So I think that's an unfair way to speak. 44 and still a construction worker. Oh, I'm 42, but I've already made it to manager. Humph. Quite bold to tack back to your superior. Just you wait. Tomorrow's going to be fun. He scoffed, then went back to his work without introducing himself. I asked other employees about the man. His name was Michael. He's been with Smith Construction for a long time. This was just the first day, and the future seemed daunting, but I tried not to let it bother me and focused on the work in front of me. The next day, as I greeted him, Michael crossed his arms and smirked at me. "Good morning. You've got some nerve. Well, we'll see what happens when you realize how terrifying I can be. Get to work quickly, bottom feeder. Come on." He piled on menial task after menial task. Why clean the windows now when it's not even dirty? Perhaps it was some kind of policy for Michael. It was hard to understand, but every task is important. If it's a job that someone has to do eventually, I might as well get it done faster than anyone else. I put my all into it and finished in no time. Seeing the menial tasks neatly completed, Michael trembled with frustration. Once his trembling stopped, he then smirked with a malicious grin. "John, go buy coffee for all the employees from the coffee shop. Make sure it's piping hot. But there's an important meeting right after. You have no authority here. Hurry up." Michael loomed over me, eyes wide and spitting as he spoke. It would take at least 15 minutes to drive to the coffee shop and back. Glancing at the clock, I saw the meeting was starting in just 3 minutes. I wouldn't make it to the meeting in time. Other employees who saw our exchange just turned a blind eye. It's natural to fear becoming the target of Michael's anger if they confronted him. I sighed and reached for the office door to leave. Then, Michael added insult to injury. "Ha ha ha, your wife would cry if she saw you like this." From a construction worker to a mere errand boy at 44. What have you been doing with your life? I hope this job lasts longer for you. I suppressed the urge to retort and dashed out without even closing the door. Behind me, I could hear the snickering of the employees spread. The laughter spread contagiously. Whether they were trying to appease Michael or genuinely found it funny was unclear. But with everyone turning against me, the company felt like an uncomfortable place to be. With mixed feelings, I bought coffee for all the employees and ran back to the office. But when I returned, the office was empty, the lights were off, and the doors were locked. It seems Michael had ended the meeting early, and everyone had left. I've been had. With a superior like that, it's no wonder the subordinates are rotten. I couldn't see myself fitting into this environment. A few weeks later, a welcome party for the new employees was organized, presumably by the president, who knew nothing of these issues. The party was set for 6 p.m. at a restaurant a bit away from the company, but it was already past 7. As usual, I was finishing up the overtime work Michael had dumped on me. By the time I arrived at the venue for the welcome party, it was past 8 o'clock. Entering the restaurant, I found the employees already deep in their cups and making a racket. It was a rather upscale restaurant, and their behavior seemed disgraceful. The president was nowhere to be seen. He must still be busy with work. I looked at the empty plates left after everyone had finished eating and decided to at least order a drink. That's when Michael, the manager, found me, put his arm around my shoulder, and led me over to a nearby seat. "John, we've got a seat ready for you." Huh, I had a bad feeling about this. The employees were causing a commotion around the seating area, while I was isolated at a table apart from them. I looked at the table and noticed that only a paper cup filled with water was placed there. Then, Michael announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Let the construction worker drink rainwater. It's got that taste you all love. Ha ha ha. Construction workers really are built differently, both in brain and brawn." I was at a loss for words, standing there dumbfounded. Michael's comments and the employees' laughter were extremely unpleasant. Furious, I was on the verge of throwing the water at Michael, but decided to leave right away instead. My wife, Lisa, was on a night shift that day, so I had no one to vent to. Half in desperation, I downed a can of beer alone in the dark kitchen. The next day, not being a regular drinker, I woke up with a headache from just one can of beer the night before. It might have been more due to stress than the alcohol. When I arrived at the office at the usual time, it seemed no one else was there yet. Since the person in charge of the keys hadn't arrived yet, I had no choice but to wait outside. It was strange that nobody was around at a time when usually someone would be. It was almost starting time, but still no one showed up. Was this some new form of harassment? I felt unease brewing in my chest. Then, the executive director arrived, looking flustered. "Good morning, sir." "Ah, John, good morning. Well, we've got a serious situation on our hands." The executive director unlocked the office, but it was eerily quiet inside, with no one around. "What's the serious situation? Does it have to do with no one being here? It was decided yesterday. Almost all the employees have been given a 3-day suspension." Suspension. He explained that after I had left the night before, the president and the executive director had shown up at the party. This scene they encountered was chaotic, with employees passed out like they hadn't changed their drinking habits since college, and the place was a mess from spilled drinks and food. The president had reprimanded them on the spot. They apologized to the staff of the restaurant and made each employee apologize individually. It seemed the employees sobered up then and realized the gravity of their actions. The president noticed I wasn't there, asked about it, and learned about my earlier encounter with Michael. Furious, he gave all present a 3-day suspension from work on the spot. "Does that mean for the next 3 days, it'll just be the part-timers and me? Hold on, I'm here too." Turning around at the voice, I saw Daniel, the new employee, out of breath. "Are you talking about last night? I can't handle my liquor, so I was out cold pretty quickly. I left before John arrived, and today, I overslept and just barely made it. I thought I was in trouble, so I contacted a coworker, only to hear about Michael's misconduct and the president's fury at the employees' drunken antics. Man, I didn't see any of it and managed to come to work as usual. Not sure if that's good or bad." Daniel gave a sheepish, unreliable smile. But I couldn't help but find him likable. The executive director sighed in exasperation. "Well, it's past starting time, Daniel. Time management is key, but let's let it slide today, given the circumstances. Actually, this might be a good opportunity to talk to you about something regarding the president and John." Something happened between John and the president. The executive director once again explained the situation. It turns out that my recruitment to Smith Construction was a direct initiative by President Smith himself. President Smith and I have known each other for a long time, dating back to when I was still in my teens. Over 20 years ago. Back then, President Smith was gaining experience at another construction company in preparation to take over his family's business, Smith Construction, and he was my supervisor when I joined as a new graduate. He took care of me in many ways, and it was through his wife's introduction that I met my wife, Lisa. We had interactions that involved our families, and he often took me out for drinks. We would discuss our work for hours on end. A few years later, President Smith left the company to succeed his father as the president of Smith Construction. He always appreciated my proactive attitude, my qualifications, and above all, my character. "Someday, I want you to join Smith Construction." That's what Mr. Smith told me. I strongly agreed with Mr. Smith's philosophy and shook his hand firmly. After that, I engaged in various construction-related jobs and gained a wealth of experience. This led to my well-prepared entry into Smith Construction. Learning how his key recruit had been treated, President Smith was furious not just with Michael but with the other employees as well. He lectured them about their shameful behavior, not fitting for professionals or decent human beings, regardless of their reasons for targeting me. He wanted them to reflect on their actions and plan to hold individual meetings with everyone during the suspension period to retrain them. Fitting all these individual meetings into his already tight schedule showed his dedication and concern for others, embodying the ideal I aspired to. After the executive director finished speaking, Daniel remained silent, looking down. Then, he began to speak softly, bit by bit. "I've been thinking that maybe it was my fault for mentioning John's tan on the first day, which Michael overheard. I never thought such a small comment could lead to such a big issue. I've seen how Michael and the others treated John, but I felt helpless. I was afraid of becoming the next target if I said anything." Daniel suddenly covered his mouth and rushed to the bathroom. It was unclear whether it was the lingering effects of last night's alcohol or if it was the mental strain manifesting physically. Daniel is a considerate and kind-hearted young man. I hoped he wouldn't leave the company over such trivial matters. The executive director left, and the part-time and temporary staff arrived. Then, the office phone rang, and the part-timer who answered said, "It's the president, for John." The part-timer handed me the receiver. "Hello, this is John speaking." "Hey, John, you know, reporting, informing, and consulting are the basics of our work, right? I apologize for that. I spoke with Michael this morning. Turns out he was jealous of you, for some petty reason." Really? Michael had seen President Smith smiling at me during the new employee introductions and feared that, despite his longer tenure at Smith Construction, the president, whom he revered, preferred a newcomer like me. Michael, humiliated by being reprimanded in front of others by the president, had shared everything quite candidly on the phone that morning. It seemed everyone had underestimated me, thinking I had only experience as a construction worker and not in design or supervision. That wasn't the case. I'm also experienced as a supervisor. President Smith had explained why he had hunted me, highlighting my skills and character. He asked everyone to use the 3-day suspension to reflect and improve their character, in line with the company's philosophy. While working, I reflected on my time since joining the company. Indeed, I had just silently followed Michael's orders without ever sharing anything about myself, nor had I tried to bridge the emotional gap to gain recognition. Perhaps I was also at fault. Just then, President Smith entered the office. "Sorry, John, for the trouble." "No, I should have spoken up to you or Michael. It's my fault for assuming the worst and keeping my distance without trying to communicate." "Right. The absence of reporting, informing, or consulting makes things dysfunctional. It's natural to have different opinions, but we all, including myself, neglected the effort to align them. My apologies. I should have handled it better. I'm sorry." President Smith burst into laughter, a hearty and robust sound. "You haven't changed a bit, John. You never let anyone be the bad guy. That's what I've always liked about you." I wasn't sure if it was a compliment, but I found myself laughing along with his laughter. My encounter with President Smith dates back to when I was in middle school. At that time, the area where I lived was struck by a major earthquake. I was asleep in my room on the second floor early in the morning when the violent shaking started, leaving me trembling helplessly. Our house, being newly built, didn't suffer major damage, and thankfully, my family was safe. The radio broadcasted news of widespread fires and the dire situation in surrounding areas. Peering cautiously outside, I could see smoke rising in several places in the distance. The roads were cracked like clay sculptures, old houses had collapsed, and fallen utility poles had crushed a station wagon 3 houses down. I wonder if Bridge A is okay. If it's gone, our town will be completely cut off, my father muttered, trying to contact his workplace, colleagues, and neighbors, but the lines were down for a while. Our town, nestled in the mountains and separated from the bustling areas by a river, relied heavily on Bridge A. Without it, we'd be isolated, with no access to convenience stores, supermarkets, gas stations, or hospitals. After some time, our neighbor called out from their window. It seemed that our neighbor's family was also safe. Like us, they were without water, gas, and electricity, and had no means of communication. They also mentioned that the old Bridge A had indeed collapsed. However, they heard that a helicopter had come to the school to transport critically ill patients and that relief supplies were being delivered there, suggesting we gather at the school if needed. Those uncertain days dragged on. Eventually, along with a box of relief supplies, we received a letter. It was an announcement about the temporary construction of Bridge A. The letter stated that there were plans to build a temporary bridge until the collapsed one could be properly repaired, due to the urgency of the situation. A construction company from another region had stepped forward to take on the task. At the end of the letter, in rough handwritten letters, it said, "We are here for you." At the time, I didn't know who had written it, but later, I realized it resembled President Smith's rough handwriting. My family and neighbors were encouraged, saying this brought them hope. After that, the bridge was rapidly constructed, and I went to see the progress every day. Workers effortlessly carried heavy parts, skillfully operated machinery as if they were their own limbs, and the leader gave precise instructions in a loud voice. They all seemed like heroes, more impressive than any movie star. I aspired to be like them someday. When the bridge was completed, I was so moved that I almost cried with joy. I made up an excuse to go to the supermarket for my mother and hurried to the bridge. There stood a large man in work clothes and a helmet. When he took off his helmet and looked back at the bridge, I couldn't help but thank him. "Thank you for fixing the bridge." He turned around in surprise, then smiled. "I want to do the same kind of work as you. I want to build and repair roads and bridges to help people." Thank you. Hearing that makes all the hard work worthwhile. It took some time to get the construction started due to all the paperwork, but I'm glad it's finally completed. If you still feel the same when you're older, get in touch. We can work together then. With that, he wiped away his tears and handed me his business card with both hands. It bore the name Smith. That was my first encounter with Mr. Smith. Afterward, I dedicated myself to filling the gaps in my knowledge, studying harder than I ever had before. I went on to college, where I studied civil engineering and architecture. In my senior year, I contacted the number on the business card Mr. Smith had given me. He spoke to the president and HR department of the company he was with at the time, asking them to hire me. And so, I secured a job at that construction company. Working together for a while, I got to know Mr. Smith better, and he got to know me. There were times when he was tough on me, but there was always a reason, and it was a learning experience about humanity. As I grew, Mr. Smith took great care of me. We built a solid relationship of trust. Reminiscing about the past, I was motivated anew to give my all at work. The next day, it had been raining continuously since the night, and a heavy rain and flood warning was issued on the news. A linear rain band had formed over the entire area, unleashing relentless, torrential rain as if a bucket had been overturned. The office phone rang, and after Daniel spoke for a while, he turned to me in a panic, the call still on hold. It's from the municipal office. They say a road has been damaged and emergency vehicles can't get through. They're asking if we can check it out. Where is it? About 7 miles north of M intersection, along the road. I'll head there right now. Please inform the president. Yes. Smith Construction had a contract with the city to respond in times of disaster. I grabbed my jacket, opened the office door, and ran to my car in the pouring rain. Using an umbrella seemed utterly pointless. Arriving at the site, I found the road leading to a mountain village had collapsed. An ambulance was stranded, leaving the village isolated. Why did it have to be today? I was eager to start the recovery work, but we were short on manpower. As I was racking my brain, a truck driven by the president arrived. Upon closer inspection, I saw some employees were also on board. It seemed the president, who had been in a meeting, received Daniel's call and gathered the employees, despite their suspension. Thankfully, while few in number, more is better than just one person. Then, Michael's car appeared. Caught by surprise, I watched as Michael and the suspended employees rushed over and immediately apologized to Mr. Smith and me. We're terribly sorry for our foolishness. We've reflected on our actions. We forgot what's truly important as humans and caused trouble for both you and John. Please let us join the recovery efforts. We still want to be of help to others. In the rain, Michael apologized, unconcerned that his shiny shoes and large watch were getting thoroughly soaked. Mr. Smith and I exchanged glances and told them. I was really annoyed at the time, but now's not the moment for that. Let's work together. Right. Mr. Smith nodded and began issuing instructions to the employees. Thanks to the employees who continued to arrive, we were able to perform emergency repairs on the road, allowing the ambulance to pass through safely. It seems that the injured were successfully transported to the hospital. By then, the rain had stopped and a rainbow stretched across the sky. We wiped off our sweat and our dirty work clothes. John, good job. Are you okay? Daniel asked tentatively as we returned to the office. Yeah, we managed to clear the way for the ambulance. Oh, well, it's not just about the road, I called Michael. Really? I was taken aback and looked at Daniel. I was scared of what he might say, and I thought about not calling him, but when I heard the ambulance couldn't get through, I knew personal feelings couldn't come into it, and I was desperate. Thank you for that. Other employees seemed to have arrived at the office too. Michael apologized to me again. I did something inexcusable. I was annoyed that the newbie was getting along with the president and thought it was hindering my promotion. Honestly, I saw it as a threat, but today, seeing John work at the site, I realized his skills are genuine. There's no way I can match him. Our levels of experience are just too different. I wish John could become our supervisor. Hearing this, President Smith patted me on the back from behind. You've earned their respect with your skills. Well done. Feeling everyone's eyes on me, I was a bit embarrassed. Listen up, everyone. I'm thinking of appointing John as the vice president. I want him to take over Smith Construction after I retire. Any objections? Of course not. It's frustrating, but there's no one else but John who can analyze and execute with a broad perspective, capable of taking over from a president who manages everything personally beyond just administrative tasks. As Michael clapped, the other employees followed suit. Wow, I was taken aback since I hadn't expected this, but being acknowledged and accepted felt incredibly rewarding. Michael had a soft smile I'd never seen before. That night, when I got home, my wife Lisa greeted me. Welcome back. The rain was quite something today, wasn't it? I'm home. Yeah, it must have been tough on your end too. It was busy. There was this boy who got injured in the rain, from a village in the mountains. He slipped and hurt himself. His father tried to take him to the hospital by car, but the roads were impassable, so they had to go back home. But when his pain worsened and he started sweating and looking pale, his mother realized something was wrong and called an ambulance. But you know, the ambulance couldn't get through either, right? So they had to wait for instructions over the phone from a doctor until the emergency services could get there. By the time the paramedics arrived, his condition had stabilized, and he was quite lively when they brought him in. And then, listening to Lisa, I recalled the events of the day. The boy waiting for the ambulance was from the village. Hearing he was safe brought me relief. And then, the boy said that he felt better just as the doctor instructed over the phone. It's like magic, isn't it? He said he wants to be a doctor like that when he grows up, to help people in trouble. His eyes were sparkling. Yeah, people who work hard always look cool. The boy reminded me of myself from the past, and it felt nostalgic. I had entered the industry admiring Mr. Smith, and my dream had come true as I got to work under him. I wished I could tell my younger self not to worry because dreams do come true. The construction guys worked hard too, in places you can't see. Really? Seeing Lisa's surprised face, I laughed. We had been involved in repairing a road damaged by the recent heavy rain. We were also tasked with replacing an old, large bridge, and the bridge was to be given a new name. The office was buzzing with suggestions for the bridge's name. Shouldn't it be Smith Bridge? That sounds a bit too pushy. What about Archline Smith? It's got a modern ring to it. Haha, it feels like we're being judged on our taste. I wondered if the people before us had struggled with decisions like this, and it was a profound thought. Our creations would remain on maps. The culmination of our efforts and hard work would become the foundation that protects and supports people. There could be no greater happiness. With pride, I resolved to continue this work into the future. Just like the always busy Mr. Smith. How was the story? Subscribing to the channel will motivate us for future video production. See you in the next video.